was so loaded, I didn't know what to do, so I was just holding him by one ankle.
Listen, and I said, my reaction was, what? Keep using the word nigger, but stop calling my sister a bitch.
Welcome to my personal audio archive, my private stash of recordings and tapes of various icons and stars that I've made over the years, including the recording of the final performance of Richard Pryor from 1996, and also my interview with Pryor from '96 that probably stands as the last recorded interview that's been publicly released, and also interviews with various confidants, including his son, Richard Jr. We'll get to that later, but for now, let's listen to the final performance of Richard Pryor, July 24th, 1996. So there you have it, previously unheard excerpts from his final show. A few days after that, I actually spoke on the phone with Richard Pryor, and this is what he sounded like, July 31st, 1996.
So, Richard. Hi, Richard. Hello, I'm doing this article for LA View, and I've caught your show the last couple Wednesdays and everything. I'm wondering, are you preparing, new material for maybe like a concert at a formal concert hall or something? Is that going to happen? Really? Like for example, the acid trip that you did in the 70s and everything. How did that involve? Did that come from a real, acid trip?
Yes.
And how did it evolve? Maybe you can, was that something you worked out at the Comedy Store?
Yes.
Okay. How about the routine where you're like rejected by a woman, and it's one of your funniest ones where but she tells why, she rejected you and everything. Was there a specific woman in mind there? Blazing Saddles. What parts of that did you write?
Did you ask Mel Brooks?
Oh, yeah, no. I never spoke to him. But you wrote some of that, didn't you?
Sure.
Okay. They say that, some of it, did you write the sheriff part? Is that all yours, or?
Oh,
Okay. What about, some of the stuff like in, Stir Crazy, for example? You didn't write it, of course, but, did you have input there? I mean, did you come up with stuff spontaneously, on the set?
yes.
Is there anything in particular, like in, maybe Stir Crazy or Silver Streak or The Mac, where you really, where it was you that, you wrote that part?
Thank you.
What? You're ending this interview?
Oh,
Wait a second, Paul.
okay.
As you can hear, Pryor wasn't in a very good way at the time, and so his significant other, Jennifer Lee, had to step in to bail him out.
I happen to know that I'm stir crazy. He was out of his mind on freebase, and he improvised a lot of that.
Okay.
I was there.
What about the, the we're bad part of that everybody cites? Was that something that was improvised by him, or?
Totally created by him.
Okay. There's a credit in the Green Berets. He was in the Green Berets, true?
No. You were in that, Richard. I've seen a filmography with that on. With you in it. I've seen that too.
So I'd be correct in saying, he was, he played in the Green Berets?
That would be weird, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, he's like credited, like Richard Cactus Pryor or something, and,
Remember that? Richard Cactus Pryor? But you did a couple of war movies.
suppose all his records, albums, movies, videos, and videotaped stand-up performances were in a pile on the floor. There was an earthquake and he could only salvage 3. What 3? What 3 would he salvage? What, he considers...
It's my phone. But my phone is which body of work, Richard? What was it? Where was it?
Are there 2 others besides, say, a Mudbone sketch?
79 concert? Richard's not thinking.
Okay, fair enough.
He's watching the Olympics and he's being contrary and obstreperous, so
That's okay.
I would think maybe we should do this later. I would encourage you to do this in person now because he doesn't seem to be very good on the phone.
Okay, then why don't we go for Friday, with Friday?
Friday at noon, yeah, and you're going to have to be persistent because
Sure.
Richard likes to, look past you and pretend that, so you'll just have to really nail him on it, okay?
Okay, then I will.
After my interview, he mostly disappeared from public view. Yeah, he did grunt a few words to a reporter in 1999, but that was likely not recorded. Here's a quick chronology of what happened in his last years. In 1994, he appeared with Bob Newhart at the Comedy Hall of Fame. It's mislabeled on YouTube as a 1996 clip, but it's from 1994. In 1995 and into early 96, he did publicity for his autobiography, which is also when he made appearances in a film and on a TV show. But by mid-1996, when I interviewed him, his health had dramatically deteriorated, as my tapes reveal here. When he appeared at the Kennedy Center in 1998 to accept an award, he didn't even speak. So one of the funniest people on the planet ended up sad and sort of desolate in the final reel, living up to the main and true cliche about great comedians. I asked Pryor and Lee about his resemblance to Lenny Bruce.
Like some people are saying, like Lenny, the movie Lenny, resembles in some ways, Richard's life. For example, he was wasn't he busted for obscenity?
Yeah.
In Richmond or something? Were there other instances where, where Richard was busted for, obscenity or whatever they call it? For language on stage?
There, Richard? Where, do you remember? Well, that's what he just said, Richmond, yeah. But was there anything beyond that? No? That you remember? Oh. Ron de Blasio was his manager at the time.
So I called up and talked to Ron de Blasio.
So I went to Richard and presented the situation to him, and I said, here's what it is. He says he'll arrest you if you go on and use profanity. What Richard said? Richard said, that's ridiculous. Everybody knows what my act is all about. And I said, right. And he said, what's the alternative? I said, the alternative is to not get arrested and don't go on. Or don't go on and not get arrested. And he said, I can't do that, though. Obviously we talked about it a while, went over what it was. We didn't talk very much. We both knew what the decision was going to be. Of course, Richard went on. Richard went on there and did his act. They want to get a show. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to give them a show. Now we interrupted. Ron, did they interrupt the show? No, here's what happened. There were two cops out there. And we did it. And we walked. We finished the show. Terrific. I mean, thunderous applause, screaming, ranting. Walked up the stage, there were two cops there. The two cops did not say anything. Just left it alone. He said to Richard, I think we want to get out of here. We went out, all that stuff. Richard and I jumped in the car and went back to the hotel. Waited at the hotel, watching television. About an hour later, knock on the door. Policeman. They didn't do it at the venue. They waited until you guys at the hotel. Oh, yeah, sure. That was the chicken part of it. Why? Oh.
De Blasio wasn't the only one who had wild stories to tell about Pryor. In interview after interview, sources talked about his brilliance, but also about the fact that he would sometimes physically attack those around him. Manny Roth, who managed Pryor for a time in the 60s and owned the Cafe Wah where Pryor first performed in New York, remembers his violence.
You teased me with that. Okay, Richard Pryor stabbed somebody with a fork on stage? Yeah. At the
Well,
wall?
he jumped off the stage and stabbed the guy with a fork. Didn't hurt him, but he was pissed that the guy was heckling him.
Oh,
So one of the incidents down at the cafe. But there are a million stories about Pryor.
okay.
So I went out in the hall just in time to see Richard and then you see Paige tussling and some production assistants trying to intervene. So, having been through this in my past and still being young adult, I jumped in between them and I grabbed Richard in a bear hug and put his arms to his side so he can't punch anybody in the arm. But I heard, well, what's it like holding Richard Pryor? I mean, Well, he's tall, skinny. He was not a robust guy. He was, he was brainly, not physically very strong.
I love when white dudes get mad and cuss, because y'all some funny motherfuckers when you cuss. Right, they be saying shit like, yeah, come on, peckerhead.
And even some admirers came away with sour feelings over his abusive behavior. Actor Damon Wayans recalls being invited over to the Pryor household for dinner in 1990, and then being angrily told by Pryor, apparently apropos of nothing, to get out of his house.
No, it's too much, because Richard is not a happy man. You know what I mean? Okay, yeah. I mean, and it's like, it's sad that stand-up is the only thing he's got. But I had a chance, actually, to recover Richard's friend. But I went over his house once with one of his ex-wives. I know her, Flynn Pryor. Oh, yeah. And my wife was over there, and Richard was, I don't know, he was so funny that night. I was in awe of him, and he just sat around making me laugh. I mean, this is interesting stuff. Is it the only time that you ever actually really sat down with him? And yeah, because he kind of hurt my feelings. How? What did he do? Because he laughed and he treated it like it was a set. Like it was, like he was a woman's. Yeah, he did like this. He'd laughing, ate dinner together, had a couple of drinks, and he got up and like this. All right, y'all get the fuck out. He went up to his bedroom, and I was sitting there laughing, and his wife said, "No, he wants you to leave now." She was what? It was the bed of get the fuck out! I can picture that. I can picture that. And I was like, yo, I'm from a different part of town. I go upside your head with a bat. Richard Pryor and all, I'll whoop your ass. I can't, I emotionally had too much, and, it just hurt me, so I just kind of backed off from him. I still love him, but, it was that abrupt. That's wild. What you're...
Then there's the time Pryor tried to throw himself out of a window after taking LSD for the first time. Henry Jaglom, his 60s pal who would later become an acclaimed film director, turned him on to acid and literally, physically stopped him from jumping. In 2005, I was the first person Jaglom ever told the story to. He has since told it to others.
You turned him on to acid, actually. I called him up, and when he came over, I gave him the tab of acid, and he started seeing horrible, a devil in the mirror. I told him, look in the mirror, look how beautiful it is, And he completely had a negative experience, and things were crawling on him. And what was most significant to me was that he actually tried to climb out of the window. And I was so loaded I didn't know what to do, so I was just holding him by one ankle. Sort of keeping him by one ankle.
Did that come from a real, acid trip?
Yeah. They crazy. White dude gave me some acid once at a party too, Jack. And I thought I was crazy before I took it. It saned me right up. Dude said, this is far out. I said, what is it? It says far out. I took it, Jack. You're gonna be tripping.
But the most disturbing story of them all is from his son, Richard Pryor Jr., who spoke candidly with me about his memory of being sexually molested by his father when he was around 5 years old. Here is his story in his words.
I mentioned, whether your dad ever did anything, sexual, to you. And you said, well, there was a weird incident, and then you stopped because there were people in the room. What, now that you're alone, what was it? What happened?
watching things. I remember you were taking a nap or something.
How old were you?
Oh my gosh, I was probably 5, somewhere around that age. Yeah. I remember when my great-grandmother came and opened the door to the bed, I jumped. You know?
Right.
Nothing now, so I was like, right there. Could be right, because I got scared, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, was he, did he do anything like, with his mouth or anything, I mean, or was it just hands touching?
No, it was just the hands.
And looking back on it now, it appears as if it's more that it was probably a sexual thing as opposed to just kind of a, maybe just kind of a stroking thing, or,
I can't imagine anyone doing something like that. Just being a stroking thing.
Was it I mean, I don't want to get in the real sensitive area, but was there like, kind of a, a penetration kind of thing, or?
No, none of that.
Okay, alright. But it was clearly, in retrospect, sexual.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's pretty heavy. But he definitely, you think because he grew up, among the brothels and all that stuff, that that maybe he just, you don't come out of something like that normal. You know what I mean? That he basically really, there was no way for him to come out and treat his kids, treat his wives, in a straight fashion, or.
Yeah, that's true.
So let me just make sure that I got it straight. At age 12 and age 16, for both of those birthdays, that you basically had, he gave you as a gift a woman to have, sexual.
Yeah, he was working on, when I was 12, he was working on a movie called Adios Amigos. We were there, and then I get a phone call to my room. The lady that was in the movie, her name was Mary White Cloud.
Right.
Asked me to, come in her room, and then she asked me to lotion her back, and then after that, she told me, "You're ready, Dad, wanted me to show you some things."
At 12 or 16?
12.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is remarkable.
Yeah. And I didn't even know what, ejaculation was or anything, and she was like, "Well, when you get ready to come, pull out," and I didn't even know what that meant.
So this was like your first time ever, yeah.
Yeah. And I was molested and stuff when I was younger, but...
Not by your father, but...
No, not by my father, but we did have a weird encounter the first time I met him, so...
What was that?
Yeah, I don't know if I should say that one, because I don't want to get that one out. I don't want Jennifer to come at me about that one.
Well, you could go off the record, or, you could kind of, there is that option. You could, go off the record on that one if you'd like.
Sure. What I would like to do, if it's okay with you,
sure,
call me another time, like during the day, when I'll be able to talk a little more freely.
Sure.
Pryor himself is, of course, no longer around to answer these charges, but it should be noted that he has never been credibly accused of child molestation by anyone else, though he has been accused of a lot of other awful things. And as a victim of sexual assault himself when he was a kid, he actually made fun of such offenders, most notably on Craps After Hours.
Arnold T. Perkins molesting school children. Step forward. Gee whiz, can we dim these lights? This is ridiculous. This is obscene in itself. Gentlemen, I have some friends on the city council, and you will hear from them.
And it's true that Pryor's childhood was spent in the whorehouses in Peoria that his family ran, and he was indeed abused from a young age. Here's Percy Baker Jr., who knew Pryor in childhood and later became the executive director of the George Washington Carver Community Center in Peoria, where Pryor first performed. We spoke on November 19th, 2004.
Well, growing up, he pretty much was, he's much older than me. Okay. But growing up, he was the kind of kid that just hung out at the brothels. Because his grandmother, Miss Marie Bryant, and his aunt, they ran houses of ill repute down in Aiken Alley.
So that story is not a myth?
No, it's not a myth. We used to throw rocks at the girls sitting in the negligees. In the red light district, they would actually sit up in the windows with negligees on with a red light. So, but Richard was a prankster and was kind to sit back and talk about people's mama and always cracked a lot of jokes on the corner, and so he used that humor. And, you know, he had guys that looked out for him and protected him because he was a little skinny dude. And,
I know how to back down. I had a lot of practices in Peoria. I was in every game. They had about 5. I was in all of them. Whichever one was winning. This is my side.
But, you know, Peoria's got a reputation. It's kind of, you know, straight-laced, Midwestern.
no, it's country.
Middle America, yeah.
It's country, basically, what it really amounts to.
Yet there was a kind of a risque element there. I hear that even the mayor of Peoria back then,
You know, the Judge Connie, he owned all the houses in Aiken Alley. You know, back during that time.
Aiken Alley?
Yeah, that's what it was. It's the famed Aiken Alley. You get a lot of guys that would come down, the gangsters would come down from Chicago, and they come down here to cool off, and that was before Prohibition. You know, so Peoria was a wide open town at that particular time when Richard was a kid coming through.
That's interesting. And there's even one story of his mother servicing, I guess, as the mayor of Peoria.
Yeah, there's stories about that. And
He doesn't read or write at that time. Well, when did that come into play? The illiteracy information. I noticed it early on when we were doing a Dick Wilson special. And it became evident to me, not anybody else, that he was working from memory. That he was working from Yet you and Richie have this literary ability, kind of instinct. Yeah, he was practically a savant.
So many see him as the genius heir to the American tradition of humor that goes back to Mark Twain and the log cabin era.
This country has produced 3 comedian geniuses in the history of America. One was Mark Twain, and the other 2 you shouldn't be able to even mention their names the same year you mentioned Mark Twain. It was Lenny Bruce and Richard Pryor.
I think that
Police got a chokehold they use out here, though, man. They choke niggas to death. That mean you be dead when they through. Right? Did you know that? Wait, the niggas going, yeah, we know. I don't know. I have no idea.
did you ever talk with him about the use of, you know, the N-word, for example? You know, your autobiography, for example. You know, he renounced it.
Yeah, well,
He renounced it after going to Kenya. He was,
and I said, my reaction was, what? Keep using the word nigger, but stop calling my sister a bitch. Okay? Because it's impossible for a black person to be a nigger.
no problem at all. You know, did the profanity offend you? You know, I mean,
Me?
Yeah.
My second language is profanity. I just have never used it on the stage.
Never
choice of what time you wanted to go on? Now, Chevy's on a 10. You're on
I
a
had
9.
nothing to do with it whatsoever, Mr. Carlson. I was just told to come here and do this, and I'm here.
So sad that a mere 19 years later he ended up sounding like this.
Did to me, and that messed me up, and I just going to mess them up the same way I'm messed up, and I don't want to do that. Like the little children. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back with some more 8-year-old dialogue.